One of the things we do after every closing is check in with our sellers. Write out paperwork or next steps, just a real conversation about how the process went and what they would tell someone else who was about to go through it. And over the years, those conversations have given us a pretty clear picture of the things sellers consistently wish they had known before they listed. Today, we're sharing 5 of them. These aren't warnings or horror stories, they're just honest insights from real people who've been through it that we think will make your experience significantly smoother if you hear them before you start.
We're running Suzanne with the Live to WC real estate team here in Hendersonville, North Carolina. And we work with homeowners across Henderson County every day. We built our peak home selling system around one simple belief, and that's selling your home should be straightforward, low stress, and designed to protect the equities you have spent years building.
What we've learned from working with sellers here is that most people don't struggle with the decision to sell because the market isn't good enough. They struggle because they have questions nobody's answered yet. So that's what we do on this channel. We answer the real questions, the ones you've been asking before you even call an agent.
The first thing sellers consistently tell us they wish they understood earlier is what they were actually going to walk away with. Not the sales price, the net proceed. That's what you're walking away with after commissions, closing costs, attorney fee, taxes, and mortgage payoff.
See a version of this regularly. A homeowner has been mentally planning the next move around a number that they came up with themselves. Usually the sales price plus whatever cost they think will come out of this. They've been imagining what that number will buy them. And then when we sit down together and build an actual net proceeds calculation, and the real number is different than what they had assumed, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, but almost always different.
The seller who assumes they'll net $380,000 actually nets $310,000 after a larger mortgage payoff than they remembered and closing costs they hadn't fully accounted for. That seller has been planning around the wrong number, and discovering the real number late in the process means making major decisions under the time pressure rather than with clear heads.
And the fix for this is simple, and it's available to anyone. Get a seller's net sheet before you make any plans. Before you talk to a realtor in the city you're moving to, but before you tell your family you're moving, you want to know your number first. And we make sure that everybody knows this number so that everything that comes after that conversation is better informed.
We actually cover this in detail in video 7, where we walk through every cost line by line on a $600,000 home sale. If you haven't watched that one, we'll link it in the comments below. It's probably the most practical, useful video on the channel for sellers getting serious about making them.
The second theme we hear consistently and honestly is the one that costs sellers the most money, and it's pricing too high at the start and having to then chase that market down.
And here's how that typically unfolds. The seller has a number in their head. Sometimes it's based on what a neighbor got 2 years ago. Sometimes it's based on a estimate or some kind of valuation. Sometimes it's just based on what they feel their home is worth. They push their agent to list at that number, or they find their agent to list at that number. The home just sits, so we slow down after the first week, they reduce the price, it sits some more, they reduce again, and the cycle continues.
By the time the home sells, it's been on the market for 3 or 4 months. It's had 2 or 3 price reductions, and buyers have been trained to see it as a home that nobody wanted at the original price. The final sales price is often lower than it would have been if it had been priced correctly from day one and generated strong early activity.
The Henderson County data backs this up directly because sellers are currently receiving 93.1% of their original list price on average. But that average includes homes that were priced correctly and sold quickly, and homes that sat, reduced, and eventually sold at a significant discount from where they started. But those at the top of that range, priced right from day one, the sellers dragging the average down are the ones who did not.
And what we've heard from sellers who went through that price reduction cycle is almost universal. They wish they had listened to the data instead of the number in their head. Not because their home wasn't worth what they thought, but because in a market where buyers have choices, the perception created by a well-priced home that generates immediate activity is worth more than the extra $20,000 they were hoping to extract by then starting high.
So the third thing is the tiny surprises. And this one goes in both directions. Some sellers are surprised by how long the process takes. Others are surprised by how fast it moves once it starts.
Timing can work both ways. One seller may feel rushed because their house went under contract in days and are now faced with packing and moving years' worth of belongings to their next destination. We've had the faster than expected experience before, and in that case, the seller was able to find their next home and decided to hire a local moving company for a full service package and for a full service pack and move, which worked out great and eliminated a lot of stress. The other situation can happen where it takes longer than expected, and this is something we are currently seeing in today's market. In those situations, understanding the balance between pricing, condition, and location of the property with the current market realities helps with planning those next steps.
What we tell every seller we work with up front is to build their timeline around reality, not optimism. In Henderson County right now, the average list to close is 132 days. That's from the day you list to the day you hand over the keys and get your money. That's about 4.5 months. So plan for that. If it goes faster, great. If it takes full time, you haven't been blindsided.
The sellers who handle the timing best are the ones who start their planning early before they list, not after they're under contract. Knowing where you're going, how you're bridging the gap between your selling and your buying, and what your backup plan is if the timeline shifts, those are conversations to have in the first meeting and not the week before closing.
That would be a big surprise to do it. The fourth theme is one that's most practical on the list, and the one where sellers consistently tell us they either overinvested or underinvested before listing.
Based on the research that we have seen, there are few improvements that net you 100% or more of the cost in return. So, installing a new kitchen may sound like a great idea to sell the house, but it's unlikely you will recoup the full cost of the renovation in the sales price. Ironically, some of the easier improvements, like painting the front door or replacing aged garage doors, offer some of the greatest uplift.
The general principle we'll walk every seller through is this. In a market like Henderson County, where buyers are discerning and have options, presentation does matter enormously, but there's a meaningful difference between the improvements that move the needle on the sales price and the one that makes you feel better about the home without returning costs back.
Paint, cleaning, decluttering, professional staging, landscaping, curb appeal, these have strong returns because they affect how a buyer feels when they walk in the door. Full kitchen and bathroom renovations right before listing, these rarely return their full cost and often create timing problems because the work takes a little bit longer than maybe the sellers had planned for.
Flip side of that equation is deferred maintenance. Things that are generally broken, worn out, or at the end of their life. A buyer's inspector will find them all. And a buyer who discovers a failing HVAC system or a roof that's near the end of its useful life during that due diligence period has legitimate negotiating leverage at the worst possible moment of the transaction. Judging those items reactively or price them in transparently is almost always the better play.
That's exactly what the pre-inspection and the prepare phase of our peak system is designed to surface. You want to know what's coming before the buyer's inspector finds it, not after you're already under contract and the clock is running.
The fifth theme is centered around, I wish I'd understood sooner how much easier an agent makes the process. And it's one that comes up most consistently in our post-closing conversations, and it's the one we find most meaningful to hear. Usually, a real estate professional makes the process easier than going it alone. We know this from personal perspective because selling our last home as a for-sale by owner is what led us to be real estate professionals in the first place. We sold in a very strong seller's market in a very desirable neighborhood with tree-lined street, a 3-minute walk to a 100-acre park that had a pond, baseball fields, picnic areas, and playground. The home ticked all the boxes. And even with that, the process was stressful and time-consuming because you don't know what you don't know. And in worst-case scenario, you may also open yourself up to greater liabilities. What we learned is the time it took to coordinate showings with buyer agents, navigate a legal contract that we'd never seen, negotiate at critical points, and coordinate everything with agents, attorneys, mortgage brokers, and more people was just not worth it.
The vast majority of buyers and sellers choose to use professionals, and what we hear in those conversations is not just, "May, it was great." It's more specific than that. It's, "I didn't realize how many things could have gone wrong that I didn't because someone was managing them." That's the part that's hardest to see from the outside before you've been through it.
Real estate transactions have a lot of moving parts. There's the contract, the due diligence period, the inspection response, the appraisal, the title search, and so on and so forth. And also the coordination between multiple parties who have their own timelines and priorities. And when all of that runs smoothly, it's easy to assume it ran smoothly on its own, but it usually didn't. It's kind of like that, what do they say, the swan paddling. It looks elegant on the surface, and then it's, madness underneath. Probably like that.
The sellers who come to us having done a previous transaction without strong representation or having done a for sale by owner are often the most appreciative of what full service representation actually involves because they have a comparison point, and the comparison is usually not close.
So those are the 5 things sellers consistently wish they know. Know your real net proceeds before you plan anything. Price it right from day one. Prepare for an actual timeline, not the optimistic one. And know what to fix and what to leave alone. And trust the process of working with professionals who have been through it hundreds of times.
None of these are complicated insights, but they're the ones that separate a smooth, confident selling experience from a stressful one. And every one of them is something that we address directly in the first conversation that we have with a seller.
If you're thinking about selling your Henderson County home and you want to go and prepare it, use the link in the description below. No pressure, just an honest conversation of what that may look like.
Thanks for watching, and contact us to get you on your path to sold.